The psychology of waiting in line. Have you ever stood in a line for 5 minutes and felt like an hour had passed? Then, suddenly, the person in front of you moves forward, and you feel a strange sense of relief. But here is the fascinating part. The amount of time you wait is not always what determines how long the wait feels. Sometimes 10 minutes can feel incredibly long. Other times, 30 minutes can pass surprisingly quickly. So why does waiting in line affect our emotions so strongly? Why can a slow-moving checkout line make us irritated, impatient, or even angry? And why does knowing why we are waiting sometimes make the exact same wait feel much easier? Today, we are going inside one of the most ordinary experiences of modern life, waiting in line. Whether you're standing at a supermarket in London, waiting for coffee in New York, boarding a train in Paris, or sitting in traffic at an airport, waiting is something almost everyone experiences, and understanding the psychology behind it can teach us something much bigger about time, attention, expectations, fairness, and even happiness. Imagine you're standing in a supermarket checkout. There are 3 people ahead of you. You look at the cashier. You look at the line. You look at your phone. You check the time. 2 minutes pass. You check again. Only 1 minute has passed. Suddenly, you're thinking, why is this taking so long? This experience reveals one of the most important principles of waiting. Our perception of time is not the same as clock time. A clock measures time objectively. Our brain experiences time subjectively. When we're interested, entertained, or deeply engaged in something, time can seem to disappear. But when we're bored, uncomfortable, uncertain, or frustrated, every second becomes noticeable. Think about being on vacation. You spend an entire afternoon exploring a beautiful city. You walk through streets, visit a museum, have lunch, and talk with friends. Suddenly it's evening. 6 hours disappeared. Now compare that with waiting for a website to load when you urgently need something. 10 seconds can feel endless. The clock hasn't changed. Your attention has changed. When we wait, especially without anything interesting to occupy our minds, we become highly aware of time. And the more we monitor time, the slower time often appears to move. This creates a strange psychological loop. You wait. You notice the waiting. You think about the waiting. You check the time. You become more aware that you're waiting. And suddenly, the waiting feels even longer. That's why one simple way to make waiting easier is to stop constantly measuring it. Now imagine 2 different situations. In the first situation, someone tells you, your train will arrive in exactly 15 minutes. In the second, your train is delayed. We don't know when it will arrive. Which wait feels worse? For most people, the second one. And that's because uncertainty is psychologically expensive. When we don't know how long something will take, our brains have difficulty creating an endpoint. We're not simply waiting for something. We're waiting without knowing when the waiting will end. Imagine sitting in a doctor's office. If the receptionist says, the doctor will see you in about 20 minutes, you have a mental target. But if they say, the doctor will see you soon, and 40 minutes pass, frustration can grow rapidly. The problem isn't necessarily the extra 20 minutes. The problem is that your expectation has been violated. This is one reason businesses, transportation systems, restaurants, and websites often benefit from giving people information about delays. Even when the actual waiting time doesn't change, information can change the experience of waiting. Knowing what is happening gives the brain something to work with, and this principle applies far beyond lines. It applies to emails, job applications, customer service, medical appointments, package deliveries, relationship messages. When uncertainty increases, waiting often becomes more emotionally difficult. Why waiting without explanation feels worse? Now imagine you're standing in line at an airport. The line stops moving. Nobody explains why. 5 minutes pass. 10 minutes. People start looking around. Someone sighs. Another person checks their phone. Someone asks, "What's going on?" Now imagine the same situation, but an employee says, "We're experiencing a temporary security system issue. We're working on it, and we expect movement within about 15 minutes. The line hasn't moved. The delay is exactly the same, but the emotional experience can be completely different. Why? Because humans don't simply want progress. We want to understand what is happening. An explanation creates a sense of control, and control is psychologically powerful. When we understand the reason behind a delay, the wait can feel more legitimate. Without an explanation, our minds may fill the information gap with negative assumptions. They don't care. They're badly organized. Someone is wasting our time. This shouldn't be happening. The brain dislikes uncertainty, so it creates a story. And sometimes that story makes us more frustrated than the actual delay. This is why communication is so important. If you are responsible for other people's waiting, simply saying, "We're sorry. Here's what is happening, and here's what we expect next," can make a meaningful difference. People don't always need immediate results. Sometimes they need clarity. Now let's talk about something even more powerful. Fairness. Imagine you've been waiting in line for 20 minutes. Then someone walks in and goes directly to the front. How do you feel? Probably not great. You may become angry even if the person only saves a few minutes. Why? Because your brain isn't calculating minutes. It's calculating fairness. Most people intuitively understand the social rule. If we arrived first, we should generally be served first. This is the basic principle behind many queues. First come, first served. When someone violates that rule, the emotional reaction can be surprisingly strong. And that's because waiting in line is not only about time, it's also a social agreement. Everyone silently agrees to follow the same system. You wait, I wait. They wait. Eventually we move forward. The system works because everyone believes the system is fair. But once fairness disappears, patience can disappear with it. This is why people may tolerate a long wait more easily, when they believe everyone is being treated equally. 10 minutes of fair waiting can feel better than 5 minutes of unfair waiting. That is a powerful lesson. People don't only care about how long they wait. They care about whether the wait feels fair. Here's another fascinating phenomenon. Imagine two supermarket lines. Line A moves every few seconds. Line B doesn't move for 5 minutes, then suddenly moves several people forward. Which line feels faster? Even if the total waiting time is identical, the moving line often feels better. Why? Because visible progress reduces psychological discomfort. When we see movement, our brain receives evidence that the process is working. We can think, "I'm getting closer," and that feeling matters. This is one reason progress indicators are so common online. When you download a large file, a progress bar can make the waiting experience feel more manageable. Even though the computer may take the same amount of time, seeing progress gives you a sense of movement. The same principle applies to physical lines. A line that moves slowly but continuously can feel better than a line that stops completely. This gives us a useful lesson for everyday life. Progress doesn't have to be fast to feel satisfying. It just needs to be visible. And that's true for much more than queues. Learning a language, saving money, building a business, exercising, writing a book, changing your habits. When progress is invisible, motivation can disappear. When progress is visible, patience becomes easier. Why standing in a line feels different from sitting. Now consider two waiting experiences. In the first, you're sitting comfortably in a cafe. In the second, you're standing in a crowded line with nowhere to sit. Even if both waits last 15 minutes, they don't feel equivalent. Your physical environment affects your perception of waiting. When you're uncomfortable, tired, hot, crowded, or anxious, waiting becomes harder. Your body is essentially sending your brain additional negative signals. This is uncomfortable. I want to move. I want to leave. Now the wait isn't just consuming time. It's consuming physical and mental energy. This is why seating, temperature, lighting, noise, and space can influence how people experience queues. A comfortable environment can make the same waiting period feel much easier. This principle is particularly useful for businesses. If customers must wait, Improving the waiting environment may be just as important as reducing the actual waiting time. A comfortable chair doesn't make the queue disappear, but it changes the experience. And sometimes, experience matters as much as duration. Why we hate waiting more when we have nothing to do. Let's return to that supermarket line. You're standing there. You have nothing to do. No conversation. No interesting view. No information. You simply wait. Now imagine the store has a screen showing useful information, entertainment, or interesting products. Your waiting time hasn't changed, but your attention has. This is important because boredom magnifies waiting. When there is nothing to occupy the mind, the brain focuses on the passage of time, and that makes every minute more noticeable. This is why people instinctively reach for their phones when waiting. A smartphone gives the brain something to explore. Messages, news, videos, games, social media. Suddenly, the waiting experience becomes less noticeable. But there's an interesting downside. If you constantly distract yourself with your phone, you may become uncomfortable with even very short periods of doing nothing. A 2-minute wait can start feeling unbearable. We become accustomed to instant stimulation. And this raises a bigger question. Have we become less patient because we have become more entertained? Think about how quickly modern technology responds. A video loads instantly. A message can cross the world in seconds. A product can be ordered from your phone and delivered to your door. We live in an environment designed to reduce waiting. As a result, ordinary waiting can feel increasingly frustrating. Waiting and the illusion of lost time. There is another reason waiting can feel so unpleasant. We often perceive waiting as time stolen from us. Imagine you are waiting 20 minutes for a delayed train. You may think, I could have been doing something useful. That's not just boredom. That's a perceived opportunity cost. You are comparing the present moment with what you believe you could have been doing. Maybe you could have been working, reading, exercising, relaxing at home, spending time with your family, so that the wait becomes psychologically expensive. But here's an interesting shift. What if you stop thinking, I'm losing 20 minutes, and instead think, I have 20 minutes that I don't normally get. Now the same period can become an opportunity. You could observe people, think about your goals, listen to music, read a few pages, practice breathing, reflect on your day, or simply do nothing. That last option may sound strange, but doing nothing can be valuable in a world where our attention is constantly occupied. Waiting doesn't always have to be dead time. Sometimes it can become unclaimed time. One of the biggest causes of frustration isn't waiting itself. It's waiting longer than expected. Imagine a restaurant tells you your food will arrive in 10 minutes. You expect 10 minutes, 10 minutes pass, then 15. Then 20. Your frustration grows. Now imagine the restaurant says, your meal will take about 20 minutes. You wait 20 minutes. The same amount of time passes, but your emotional reaction may be completely different. Why? Because expectations create a psychological reference point. We compare reality with what we expected. If reality is better than expected, we feel good. If reality is worse than expected, we feel disappointed. This explains why managing expectations is so important. If you tell someone something will take 5 minutes and it takes 15, they may become angry. If you honestly tell them it will take 15 minutes and it takes 10, they may feel pleasantly surprised. The actual service time matters, but the gap between expectation and reality matters too. This applies to customer service, work, travel, relationships, personal goals. Even our own expectations of ourselves. Sometimes reducing frustration isn't about changing reality. It's about creating more realistic expectations. Part 10. Why waiting can teach us patience. Now let's move beyond cues, because waiting is actually a small form of training. Every time you wait without immediately reacting, you practice a psychological skill: delayed gratification. Delayed gratification means being able to tolerate a smaller reward Now, in order to receive something more valuable later, you wait for the meal. You wait for the paycheck. You wait for the exam results. You wait for your business to grow. You wait for your savings to accumulate. You wait for your skills to improve. Modern life often encourages immediate gratification. Click, buy, watch, scroll, order, respond, repeat. But many of life's most meaningful rewards cannot be rushed. A strong career takes time. A healthy relationship takes time. Learning takes time. Trust takes time. Building financial stability takes time. Personal growth takes time. Waiting in a line may seem insignificant, but it gives us tiny opportunities to practice a much bigger ability. The ability to remain calm when the reward is not immediate. How to make waiting easier. So what can you actually do the next time you're stuck in a long line? Here are several simple strategies. 1. Stop watching the clock. Constantly checking the time can make you more aware of waiting. Instead, check occasionally and then redirect your attention. 2. Look for progress. Notice whether the line is moving. If you can see progress, focus on that rather than the remaining distance. Instead of thinking, I still have 20 people ahead of me, think, 3 people have already moved forward. 3. Find information. If you're waiting because of a delay, find out why. Information can reduce uncertainty. 4. Use the time. Listen to something useful. Read. Plan your day. Practice mindfulness. Or simply observe your surroundings. 5. Manage expectations. If you're responsible for someone else's waiting, be honest about the likely delay. Clear expectations are often better than optimistic promises. 6. Remember that you are not losing your entire day. A 15-minute wait is 15 minutes. It doesn't have to ruin the next several hours. Sometimes we allow a small inconvenience to create a much larger emotional cost. The bigger lesson behind waiting. There is something surprisingly profound about standing in line. Everyone around you is waiting for something. The person in front of you has somewhere to go. The person behind you has somewhere to go. The cashier has their own life. The employee helping customers has their own worries. Everyone is carrying an invisible story. And yet, for a few minutes, you are all sharing the same space. Waiting reminds us that modern life is built around systems, queues, schedules, traffic lights, appointments, deadlines, reservations. We constantly negotiate our desires with reality. And reality doesn't always move at the speed we want. That's one of the most important lessons waiting can teach us. You cannot control every delay. You cannot control every line. You cannot control every traffic jam. You cannot control every late train. You cannot control every response. But you can influence how you experience the waiting. You can choose whether every delay becomes a battle, or whether some delays simply become moments. Final thoughts. The next time you're standing in a long line, try something different. Don't immediately reach for your phone. Don't constantly check the clock. Don't assume the people working are responsible for everything going wrong. Instead, pause. Notice how your mind reacts. Are you becoming impatient? Are you checking the time repeatedly? Are you comparing your line with another line? Are you becoming angry because someone moved ahead? Are you frustrated because nobody explained the delay? These small reactions reveal something fascinating about the human mind. We don't experience waiting through the clock. We experience it through attention, expectation, uncertainty, fairness, comfort, and control. And that's why 2 people can stand in the same line for the same amount of time and walk away with completely different experiences. One person may say, that was a terrible 30 minutes. Another may say, it wasn't too bad. I listened to a podcast and relaxed. Same line, same clock, different experience. And perhaps that is the most useful lesson of all. We cannot always choose how long we have to wait, but we can often choose what we do with waiting. So the next time life puts you in a line, remember, you are not simply waiting for your turn. You're practicing patience. You're observing your mind, and you're being given something that modern life rarely gives us anymore. A moment when we have no choice but to slow down. And sometimes, the moments we are most desperate to escape are the moments that have something to teach us. If you found this video useful, consider subscribing for more fascinating psychology, human behavior, and everyday life lessons. And next time you find yourself waiting in line, ask yourself one simple question. What is this moment trying to teach me? Because sometimes the wait is not the problem. Our relationship with waiting is